I will start by telling you a story that's a true story. My colleague Brenda and I were running a strategic communication session, training workshop for a well-known company's finance unit. So things were going great. Everyone was paying attention until the chief executive picked up, I think he was a finance guy. He picked up his phone. He was totally preoccupied by it. He started texting feverishly, and like a row of falling dominoes, the other attendees started checking their mobiles. And later we learned that a report had just been released which showed negative effect on the company's stock price. And so the shareholders were not happy. We had been hired to deliver content to help these executives become more effective communicators. But in a plot twist, we had to pivot the client towards managing crisis communications, like this. Whether you deliver information in a high-stakes situation, be prepared to flex, to pivot, and improvise at a moment's notice. Before I highlight some likely scenarios and the best responses for each, let me take you through a 3-point checklist that can prepare you for the worst. First, prepare mentally. It's impossible to anticipate every negative situation, but you can come up with some what-if scenarios when you're designing your presentation game plan. So these should go beyond the obvious of the presentation PowerPoint is not working, our time got cut short, or all the other tech glitches that routinely can happen. By the way, you should prepare with cloud storage and US backups. Those are standards. In every case, include a mental reframe from negative to positive, such as, okay, I've got this, I can handle this. Let's pivot to plan B, or this is just a glitch, stay focused. A brilliant scientist I had been coaching for an important board presentation ended up having to present while he was overseas attending to his ill mom. He knew this might be a possibility, so we rehearsed options so we wouldn't have to show that he was caught off guard. He followed notes with his visuals and he sent them to the board ahead of time, and he guided them virtually through the material. After the presentation, they all complimented him on staying calm and confident under the difficult circumstances. The second one is to practice purposefully. I preach this strategy relentlessly. Athletes walk their race routes and performers run through dress rehearsals. So presenters should similarly need to plan a practice schedule that's paced in a way to allow for both interruptions and improvisation. Because audiences will pick up on energy drops. They think about breaking your content into 3 chunks. Don't always practice from the start to the finish. Try starting 1/3 in and then stopping at a logical transition. Then start again and practice the last third of the content and focus on nailing your closing line. By practicing in chunks, you'll become comfortable with all of the content, which makes it easier to pick up at any point when you get interrupted. So consider practicing your presentation also using AI tools, which are so available to us today. Finally, after you practice mentally and you practice for transitions, know your audience. The importance of this cannot be overemphasized. The more you study your audience, know what matters to them, and determine how your information brings them value, the better prepared you are to pivot. In a presentation to the company finance board, Brenda and I could never have anticipated what was going on as a distraction of the stock crash, but we did prepare for a possible group's attention lapse and to happen at some point. It's natural. Our response was to say, okay, let's all take a refreshment break, or a bio break as we call it. And during our time, we came up with our second plan. The topic of strategic communication pivoted to an impromptu session on crisis communication, allowing us to make our content even more relevant to the client. So that 3-point checklist is your go-to each time you prepare to deliver an important message. To accompany that, here are some common presentation glitches that may happen and how you can thrive in each one. The first one, the unexpected teammate absence. Here's the scenario. You're preparing with your team for weeks, but the morning of the presentation, one of the team members has a family emergency and can't be there in person to participate. So here's your training drill. The best way to prepare is by knowing each other's content. Practice presenting the other person's material as the group so everyone can give feedback and everyone knows each other's pieces. Try practicing a dress rehearsal, both in person and virtually if you can. And the pro tip here is Don't let them see you sweat. If things get tense, use a bridge phrase such as, "Let me briefly share what John had in mind here," or "Let me fill you in on how John would have addressed your concerns." Connecting the comments, the questions, or criticism to your current discussion, that's really an important thing to do. Because your teammate is not there to interact with the audience, be sure to demonstrate their credibility on the topic. You could say, "Well, after all the data analysis John has done over the past year on this project, he would tell you this." The second scenario is the voluntold invite. What do I mean by that? Your senior executive doesn't have time to deliver the message and asks you to do it with just an hour notice. Here's the training drill for this. Even though you might have only contributed to part of the slide deck, imagine when you're working on it, being the one to deliver it. Be sure to know the flow, the themes, the transitions, and the key points of the presentation. Focus on what your executive would have said to drive the message home. And here's the pro tip. This may be your moment to shine in front of key decision makers, so be sure you open with energy and positivity. Think about saying, "I'm excited to get to present in front of you all today." Represent the group or your executive by using words of we and us, that kind of language, and portray yourself as the information deliverer. Third, the derailing interruption. Here's the scenario. A senior executive challenges your data or your logic mid-sentence, or two audience members get wrapped in conversation about your topic and they're high ranking, so what are you going to do? You can't just ignore them. So here's your training tip. Assume that you could be disrupted or questioned at any time during your presentation. Try hiding little Easter eggs, or what I call hyperlinked areas of the slide, which connect to additional information relevant to potential questions. In parts of my Presenting to Senior Executives at the Age of AI, a LinkedIn learning course, I share prompts that you can add to an AI tool to help you practice with burning questions on your topic. So record yourself, deliver the answers on camera, and analyze for your clarity and your tone. And here's a pro tip. Stay calm and nod as questions come in while gathering your thoughts. Give yourself some additional time by using phrases while you bring up an important point. Let me show you how we could calculate this, and then hyperlink to the supporting data. Never simply guess in your reply. Acknowledge if there are gaps and commit to following up. In the case of the side conversation or interruption, consider saying something like this. "I see that my data has generated some discussion. Would you like to see additional information, or should I continue to the next slide?" Here's another challenging situation, the agenda shakeup. Here's the scenario. Someone ran over their allotted time, and the meeting leader didn't manage the agenda effectively, and now you're stuck with less than half the time you had planned for the topic. I hate that. But here's the training tip. Regardless of whether you're in the room or you're waiting patiently just outside, you'll likely know that this will happen. You're a little preempted, right? So train to deliver the highlight 10% of your overall content and have a highlight slide to accompany it. Another good idea here is to have a leader's guide timeline of your presentation. Mark checkpoints. I should be here at 5 minutes, at 10 minutes, at 15 minutes, so you can adjust pacing on the fly. Here's a pro tip. This is becoming a theme, but I'll say it again. The more prepared and nimble you are, the better impression you will make in your presentation. Finally, the distracted audience. Here's the scenario. You cannot anticipate what might compete with your attention in your audience. During a presentation I once gave, the group became completely distracted when catering started setting up the lunch buffet in the back of the room. Like, how many times does that happen? It wasn't the noise, but it was the aroma of the foods that drew their attention from me. That's a tough call. So here's a training tip. Practice changing your information to get the audience's attention, or have rhetorical questions that help the audience stay engaged. Prepare a few audience hooks, like short, vivid stories or quotes that tie directly to business outcomes. It's also helpful to know your audience's tendencies. If you've heard of the CFO that hardly ever maintains eye contact in meetings, you're not going to take it personally when it happens. Focus more on others in the group. And here's the pro tip. All audiences become distracted from time to time. Stay confident and be attuned to their energy. Challenging your actual placement in the room, or changing your placement in the room helps interaction with your visuals and enlarging your gestures, and just being more strategic will help you be visible in the moment. On the verbal side, re-engage with a compelling example or testimonial. Increase the tone of your voice. Use phrases like, here's how this plays out in our project, to help harness their focus. Whether it's a stock drop, a shortened agenda, a hungry audience, a high stakes, or successful communication demand more than just preparation. It calls for presence, adaptability, and strategic intent. When you train for the unexpected, you don't just survive the moment. You will lead through it with strength and confidence.